to say that there's one word that comes to mind whenever you think of Tom Casey, and that word is gentleman. And so many people have used that word in talking about Tom. And those of us that were lucky to know him well, and I was not lucky to have him as a teacher. I know some of you sitting here did have Tom as a teacher. But of all the Honor Society inductions every year, and I love those events, it just makes you so proud of the wonderful children that we have in North Rockland. But the social studies one was one of my favorites. For one thing, I love local history, so I would always look forward to Tom's speech, because it was, what is he going to talk about this year? Which event, or which historical house, or which historical person that touched North Rockland in some way. And it wasn't just what he was going to say, but the way Tom delivered. And you could just sit there in awe. Like, I remember just sitting there, oh, I don't want it to end. I want him to keep going and talk about something else, because that's the magic that he had. He just captured his audience, and he was such a well-informed man, and his delivery was just so polished and so intriguing always, that it was just one of my favorite nights, and looking forward to what historical little piece about Rockland I would learn that year, and how well it would be delivered by Tom. So I guess was fortunate to follow in Tom's footsteps. I left Farley's assistant principalship to take over for Tom, and I don't know that I could ever really do that, because those were tremendous shoes to fill. And I certainly learned a lot from him, and I know that he was always a phone call away whenever I needed an explanation of something or a clarification of something, and he was always around in the office, because Tom didn't type. So Debbie, most of you know that. So as he was asked to speak in other places, he would always come by the office, and my secretary, his former secretary, was still his secretary. And if Tom had something that he had to get done, that took precedence over anything we had to do in the office. But she forever kept typing for Tom, and she wanted to be here, and wanted me to tell Nancy that she absolutely adored him, and just thought so highly of him as a person, and would never call him Tom, Mr. Casey. And so I'm not going to take any more time. I know you have a lot going. He's someone that we will forever love, and has made such a mark in North Rockland, and in so many of us that are here, and some of us are here because of Tom. So thank you for being here, and let the show go on.
Hello, my name is Maggie Dorfman. I'm a senior here at North Rockland High School, and I'm also president of the Thomas F.X. Casey Social Studies Honor Society. History is the breath on which America relies to survive. The rich details of history color our world and allow for a more coherent perception of everything around us. The phrase "history repeats itself" is more than just a statement written in the essays of AP exams. It is both a blessing and a curse. In order to transform as many events of the present into positive outcomes, we must look to our past to aid us with the future. It is men and women such as Thomas F.X. Casey that give us the window into the past. Thomas F.X. Casey dedicated his life to not only serving children of the community through his various roles with the school district, but also by preserving the history of North Rockland and Rockland County. His life was spent educating anyone who would listen, bringing hope to the present and enlightenment to the future.
You know, it's ironic, I have to start with the social studies lesson, of course, that we're recognizing Tom today on January 15th. It's Martin Luther King's birthday. And as I hope you know, across the country, Dr. King's birthday is frequently recognized as a day of service. And who better than Tom do we recognize for service to the North Rockland School District? But I know what Tom would say, just look around, and you see it all over. And so I need to recognize those people who made this possible. Steve Shepherdson, wherever he went, oh, there he is, has put all of this together. We all know what it's like to be in this building at 6:30 in the morning and do what we do, and then still be around to do this after school. Ileana's guidance helped me to get this whole thing started. Nancy, Claudia, Justina, Melissa I was so moved when you said it was okay to have Tom's chair and many of his papers, and there were many papers. The North Rockland Board of Education was very supportive and very helpful. And I just want to remind all of you, especially the kids, there's no gesture, regardless of how large or how small, that is ever accomplished by one person. To all of you who helped and played a role in this, and those that I have no knowledge of, thank you very much. Don't clap. When I picked up the plaque, which I hope all of you will take the opportunity to look at after, Kevin, the man that I worked with, handed it to me and he said, it says it all. And it says, I know you can read, but it says Thomas F.X. Casey, 1935 to 2009, educator, scholar, gentleman. North Rockland Central School District, 1961 to 2001. Tom used every opportunity to educate all of us. His manner of dress served as a model for what a professional educator looks like. His self-deprecating wit could diffuse a situation that did not have to escalate. His use of leisure time served as an illustration to his children. Go to the shore, go to Monticello. It was a no-brainer. When Tom served as in his first administrative position, he continued to teach 2 classes for a long time. He taught the AP class, which he brought to this district, and he also taught what was in those days the designation, the 4 group students, whose designation really meant that they were low-achieving students academically. He never wanted his head to get so firmly in the clouds that he forgot what teachers face every single day, and he never did. He never did forget, which made him an outstanding department head and administrator. Tom's scholarship in local history is very well known. The North Rockland High School is the beneficiary of the collection of his speeches and articles about the history of the North Rockland community and the county at large. I am a 4th-generation Rocklander, and I learned a lot as well. Who knew that there was a 19th century utopian community in, of all places, Garnerville? As a classroom teacher whose love of the history of the United States was evident from the very beginning, he served as a consultant to the Adams Chronicles, a series on PBS in 1976. And face it, there aren't many classroom teachers who can cite that accomplishment on their CV. He encouraged scholarship in his faculty as well. As far as I know, he was the only coordinator who had 2 different NEH Summer Fellows in his department. Finally, Tom the Gentleman is probably his most lasting legacy. Well, I suspect that Nancy and his girls probably paid a high price for the patience, understanding, and the individual kindnesses that he offered to the public. Those of us who watched or were touched by these gestures are forever in his debt. I went to see Tom shortly before he died. While facing challenges of his own, his first words were to congratulate me on the eulogy that I gave at my father's funeral. I said, well, I'm no Tom Casey, but I did my best. And he simply waved his hand and smiled. In Mitch Albom's book, Have a Little Faith, the rabbi noted that people actually die twice, when their temporal life ends and when no one remembers them anymore. We, the North Rockland educational community, have made one small gesture to see that Tom is never forgotten.
My name is Steve Shepardson. I'm a social studies teacher here at the high school, and I'm the advisor to the Thomas F.X. Casey Social Studies Honor Society. And before I explain kind of the story behind what we created here, I just wanted to tell a little personal story, especially so much of Tom's family here. It's through some sort of time machine, time warp thing. I've somehow become the old man of the social studies department. Don't know how that happened, but when I interviewed for the job in 1990, it was a very hot August day, and I came into the high school, and I was sitting across the table from Izzy Bordanic and Tom Casey, who couldn't have been more opposite sorts of people. And I remember the first thing that struck me was I was sitting across the table from a very distinguished-looking gentleman who was wearing a buttoned-up three-piece suit on one of the most god-awful hot days that I'd ever been through. And that was my first impression of Tom. But there was some sort of connection there, and I was very, very fortunate that I had somebody like him in my life as a young teacher to kind of provide me with the guidance that I needed to become not only sort of teacher, but the man that I've become. He was a tremendously important person, both in our department and in our school, and that was why when we started to put this together, we wanted to do more than just honor him with a plaque or something that was going to hang on a wall somewhere. So we started to think of ideas about who Tom was and what he represented, and it all comes back to his love of history and the work that he put into preserving North Rockland and Rockland County history. And graciously, Nancy was able to and agreed to donate not only the chair but the writings. There's more than just what's out here right now. These are 128 of his writings and speeches, and it's amazing when you go through them. And this was our great hope, that kids in the school would be attracted to a comfortable-looking chair rather than the ones you're sitting in. And with kind of a, hey, what is this over here? And have a seat, take a look at what's here, maybe open it up, see some of the headings and the titles, whether it's the house on 9W that may or may not have been the background for the movie Psycho. There's papers on everything in here, slavery in Rockland County, and kind of peruse a little bit of who and what we are and where we've come from and what we're becoming. And it was through work with Mary Lou and with Mrs. Gaddy, the president of the Honor Society last year, Seamus Finucane, Maggie this year, that we were able to put it together. So we hope that it is a lasting tribute to Tom and something that will be cherished by students and generations to come. And Mr. Lefevre couldn't be here today, and Mrs. Gaddy is ill, but her daughter, who's a senior at North Rockland, is going to read to us some closing remarks that Mrs. Gaddy had prepared for today.
Hello. I'm extremely disappointed that I cannot be here today, but I was diagnosed yesterday with asthmatic bronchitis, and in bed is where I need to be. I am so excited that this day has finally arrived, and extremely grateful to Dr. Gill, Dr. Murphy, Mr. Kevin Metcalf, Mr. Shepardson, Mrs. Debbie Viato, Mrs. Mary Lou Dillon, and the students and others who worked on this project. I am also grateful to the Casey family for sharing a little piece of Tom with our students for generations to come. Tom Casey was an incredible teacher who never stopped learning and who instilled that love of knowledge in everyone he met. To listen to Tom tell a story was to be transported through time and space back into those exact moments. No detail was too great or too small, and every detail was told. Listening to Tom talk about history was just magical, and he always left you wanting to know more. That is what teaching and learning is about, and Tom was a master. When we had our very first meeting several years ago, I expressed what I saw in my mind's eye. A warm, welcoming space with a big, comfy chair that would draw you in the same way that Tom drew you in with his historical stories. I cannot wait to get here to see the space. Tom's legacy will not only live on in the hearts and minds of those he taught and knew, but now in the minds of those yet to come. There could not be a more fitting tribute. Thank you.
That's it for the speeches and everything. We'd love it if you could stay and just kind of talk and commune with one another. There's drinks and cookies and everything over here. And that's it.
Thank you.